This podcast is rated MA. It may contain coarse language, sexual situations, and fantasy violence. It is not recommended for persons under 17. Welcome to Werewolf the Apocalypse, Rage Across St. Louis. I am Kirk, and I am the storyteller for Werewolf the Apocalypse.
I'm Seth. I'll be playing Dax Gibbons.
I'm Mary, and I'll be playing Blaise.
I'm Julia, and I'll be playing Abigail Morningkill.
Okay. All right. This is Prelude session, episode 1 we'll be doing tonight. And, all right, basically everyone was born in 1980, because you're all the same age. You're all 18. Mm-hmm. I guess, Dax, tell us a little bit about the character, not so much the history, anything they're good at, so that in case people don't have access to Obsidian Portal, they'll be able to guesstimate, or if they're totally listening to this at work and they can't, pull up Obsidian Portal.
Sure. So Dax has been a loner, a hobo for a long time, and he is very adept at having charisma to get people to give him what he needs. He can seduce people to also get what he needs. Good at foraging, of course, and can go into the woods and build pretty much whatever he needs.
So survivalist.
A survivalist, yes.
Blaise is, she's a stripper by trade. She enjoys that job very much. She's got some of the, she's good at it. She's pretty. She's got a lot of animal magnetism appeal, and she's athletic enough to have fun dancing and perform well. She likes to party. Okay. And has a lot of, I don't know where I was going with that. That's pretty much it.
Okay. Abigail?
Well, Abigail is the definition of an entitled kid. She grew up pretty rich. She went to one of the rich, iconic schools in St. Louis. Her family is werewolf royalty, but she tries to use her influence for good. So she fights the authority, not to be necessarily a rouser, I guess, but more to make sure that everybody is happy, I guess is a good way to put it. She is really good at talking to people, and she's kind of a prankster at the same time, so it's a very funny mix. So it's kind of what she does.
And this game will take place in 1998, so we will be backing up a little bit and going into people's prelude or their prehistory to sort of flesh out, give these characters a little bit of a feel before we actually roll into the chronicle itself. So we'll open on a dirt road in the middle of the night. One car is driving along, and the subtitle underneath says 1992, Tulsa, Oklahoma. And the camera pans closer and closer to the top of this car and dips down to where you can see the occupants inside, and there is a man in his 30s and a woman in her early 30s and a 12-year-old boy in the back seat reading a comic book. And they're driving along, and inside, the parents are talking about pretty much mundane stuff, where they're going to go eat. The mom is talking about moving some furniture in the house, and the boy is kind of droned it out, listening to his Walkman CD player in the back seat, reading Science Dog comic number 45. And the panels are, the dog is putting together some concoction that is going to save the universe from the evil scientist who is bent on destruction. When everything explodes, glass is everywhere, comic is everywhere, The young boy is being flipped around. The parents are flipped as well, tumbling. The dad has a seatbelt on, the mom doesn't. And everything comes to a rest, and dust is everywhere, glass is everywhere. And the young boy basically pulls up from the roof of the car, which is now on the ground, and looks around. His dad is hanging upside down. His mom is not in the car. Dax, that's where you find yourself starting out. The engine is kind of whining as it's spinning out. There's blood coming from your dad's head. Again, he's unconscious, and your mom is nowhere to be found.
Well, in my head, I'm freaking out, scared of the blood. I run out of the car.
Climbing out of the car in the wreckage, it is a dirt road in the middle of nowhere. There's no real trees. This is kind of close to or on the Indian reservation where your parents are from. And off in the distance, you hear some strange growling sound. It sounds like nothing you've heard before. Maybe somewhere between a bobcat and a bear. It's a very odd, deep, low, but high-pitched kind of growl. And as you stand there trying to get your bearings of what's going on or where it's at, you hear your mom off in that same direction, sort of whimpering or waking up and gasping a little bit.
I want to run over. But
Okay.
I'm too scared, so I hide behind the car.
As you start to get up and run, your leg is bent at a weird angle, and it hurts to even put any pressure on it. So you kind of limp, hold onto the car as you're dragging yourself sort of around the side. You hear her scream again, and this time whatever is growling sounds like it has bit or is tearing something.
I'm going to hobble toward that place because I'm angry.
Okay.
I don't want my mom hurt.
Roll 3 dice. These are going to be your dex, or your dex 4. What'd you get?
031.
You managed to get across the road, and as you're heading in that direction, you stop at a small ravine, which means you'll have to probably climb down it and get back on the other side. And off across the moonlit field or the dirt, you see this hunched over, humanoid-looking furry thing, and it is biting down on something that's laying there. And you assume it's your mom because she screams again and tears. It pulls apart whatever it's eating, and you assume it's part of her. What's your perception on your character sheet?
2.
Roll those dice. Everything's kind of blurry. You don't really have your skills.
5 and 1.
5 and 1. For a moment, you think it is not your mom, and that maybe she's closer than whatever this thing is, that maybe it's back behind her off in the distance eating something, but that would make it even larger than humanoid at this point. So fear kind of stops you from going any farther, and you start to hear your dad gurgling back in the car a little bit, which is about 5 to 10 feet behind you.
All right. I return to the car.
Okay.
And see how he's doing.
He is groggily looking around upside down still, and he starts calling for you and your mom.
I'll try to release his seatbelt.
Okay, go up to the door. Try your strength. Roll your strength.
332.
Okay. The door will not open. As much as you try to pull it and pry it, it squeaks and grinds. It doesn't feel like the latch is even letting go when you pull on it. The car's pretty smashed up. You think the door may even be squished shut.
Crawl in through the door I came out of.
Okay. Actually, his window is smashed out. You can actually reach in and touch him. Since you're right there. You get down on your hands and knees, and he looks over at you with a weird, like a faraway look, and says, "Dax, where's your mom? Where's your mom?"
She's over there in the grass.
Is she hurt?
I can't tell. Too scared to go over.
My arm's not working. Can you let go of? Can you get my seatbelt undone?
I'll try.
Okay. You reach in and roll your dexterity. Your difficulty is a 6.
6-8.
You reach in and you actually wind your hand around inside and click it, and he falls on his head pretty much really hard. Feet over his head, slumps to one side, and he says, "Help me get out." He starts trying to crawl with his good arm. Start trying to pull him. Use your strength again. Difficulty is 6.
752.
You help him to get out. He's using most of his strength. He gets out and starts to stand up, and his leg is also smashed up and cut. It looks like his knee's been damaged from when it hit the dashboard. Your mom screams again off in the distance. Is that your mom? Where's she at? We got to go get her. What's going on? Is she hurt?
I don't know. I'll go see. I gather up some courage.
Okay. Spend a willpower point. You don't have to. How many do you have? You have like 8?
Mm-hmm. 9.
Okay, just tick one off at the bottom. You manage to steel yourself against whatever's scaring you so bad, and you start to walk forward and make another perception roll as you get to that ravine again. And look out across the
5-2.
You can't tell where she's at. It looks like tumbleweeds or something's out there, but you hear the crunching noise and a gurgle, I should say.
I'm gonna keep going.
All right, this is your dexterity, and any athletics will cap it at like a 1 since you're a kid, 12 years old. Difficulty 7.
8-6.
You leap across and basically catch on with your arms while the rest of your body is at the edge of the ravine. Make another dexterity and athletics, difficulty 7, to climb up with your hurt leg.
Oh, 4-3.
Shoop, you slide down to the ravine. And you hear your dad kind of shuffling, getting closer. You can also tell he's really pushing it by walking on his leg. Dax, where'd you go? Where'd you go? I can't see you. Can't see you.
Down here in the ravine.
You eventually see his face peek over the edge. I don't think I can make it over. How far does this go down on either side? Can't see. It's in the dark. It kind of goes off for a while.
Oh, I can't really tell, Dad.
Can you get out of it? Can you climb?
I've tried.
Let me go back to the car and let's see if I find a blanket or something we can use as a rope or something. He starts hobbling back slowly. Are you going to stay there? Or do you want to climb out the side you came, or do you want to go try and get out?
I'm gonna try to get out and go
toward
the mom.
All right. Another dexterity and athletics, difficulty 7.
8, 2, 5, 1.
Okay. You make it up to the lip barely. It takes you a little bit. You roll over the edge and you look back and you see your dad is just now opening up the trunk and things are falling out and he's kind of rummaging through stuff. Do you want to wait for him or do you want to go?
No, I'm gonna go.
Okay. Perception roll.
9-2.
You see, as you get a little closer, there is a body of a human laying on its back, and over it is this humanoid, furry, looks like a tiny, slim bear almost, but it's not a bear. You've never seen bears in Oklahoma. This stops you in your tracks when you see what's going on, and this thing is feeding off of what your mind is now telling you is your mom that has been killed by it. Make a dexterity and stealth if you have anything like that.
6, 4, 3.
As you stand there, you gasp when you realize it's your mom. And this thing slowly turns to look at you. And it has human eyes, but they are much larger and wider than they should be. Where it would have a nose, it is caved in or like skinned off. And its mouth is about twice the size, full of razor-sharp teeth that would look like a shark or some sort of terrifying cat almost. And as you're standing there, you see in the moonlight that its fur is a sickly green, but it's not nice and uniform. There's big splotches missing. And it slowly turns paw in front of paw on all fours and starts slowly doing that hunched, like it's going to pounce, walk towards you, and it locks eyes with you. Roll your willpower. Difficulty 7, I'm sorry. Everything over 7. How many of those did you get?
9, 8, 4 out of 9.
Your 12-year-old mind snaps, and you see red. This thing has just killed your mother and possibly disemboweled and ate most of her. You are feeling the effects of a delirium of sorts. What do? You can stop this by spending a temporary willpower point to cease the action to tear this thing apart with your hands. But now tears are streaming down, and you're just pissed.
So I look around for a stick.
No sticks.
Then all
It is
right.
a good-sized rock.
I will pick up the rock and spend the willpower.
Okay. So you slowly, without losing eye lock with this thing, slowly bend down and pick up a rock and lean back up. And the thing is slowly advancing, and it almost grins when you pick up the rock. which animals don't do that. So it gets a nice big toothy smile. It's about 15, 20 feet away from you. And while looking at it, you glance back at your mom, and there's no breath. There's really no chest cavity anymore. It's all kind of gone. 1 foot in front of the other.
I think at this point I'm going to have rage take over
Yeah,
and throw the rock at him and attack.
So a stone is difficulty 5. It would be your strength. The damage is strength and bashing.
Bashing?
Yeah.
Bashing.
The damage is bashing, which means it's
okay.
non-lethal.
I see. All right, strength and that's it, huh? All right, same.
So you rear back and you let fly with this rock.
You said 6.
6 is the difficulty.
I got 1.
5 is first stone.
Then I got 2.
2 hits. So you'll be rolling your strength plus 1 extra dice because you succeeded by 1. Everything over 6 for damage.
2.
You wing it, and it pops this thing in the head, and it closes its eyes for a moment and stops smiling. And it looks like it winces and slowly opens one eye and fixates on you, and it opens up the other eye, and then it starts to growl. It starts advancing again, slowly, like a puma or a large lion. It's crouched down.
I think at this time I'm going to turn around and run
Okay.
toward my dad.
Okay. As soon as you turn around, you are confronted with your father, who is right behind you, and he gets in front of you and takes his hand and shoves you down behind him. Perception roll. Difficulty 4 as you're hitting the ground.
2.
2 successes.
Yes.
You hit the ground and turn to see this large creature leaping onto your dad's shoulders, all 4, and its paws and claws, or whatever they are, dig into his flesh, and he grunts as the weight of himself and the creature collapses leg, and it goes down, and it is snapping at his face as it's going down. What do you want to do next? You're sort of tumbling and come to a stop as he falls.
Look around for a stick.
No sticks. You find a perfectly shaped throwing stone that you think it's got a nice point on it.
Now I'm going to pick it up and toss it at the dude.
Same thing. Melee, dexterity, plus 1 extra dice. 1 extra die.
6.
5 is the difficulty, I'm
5.
sorry.
1.
Roll 1 extra die because of the nice stone.
2.
Roll 1 more die to hit. Difficulty 5.
No.
Okay. Damages your strength by itself.
Yeah.
And that's a 6.
0.
None?
No.
Thing glances off its fur, and it doesn't even seem to notice as it clamps down on your father's neck. And you hear a gurgling shout cry as it snaps.
Now I'm attacking it.
At this point, panic is starting to set in. Terror. You've just seen your father die, and you're out in the middle of nowhere. You think you're a couple miles from the settlement, which is off to the west, which is where you were heading. You look off and you see the car wreck in the distance.
Try to hop down in the ravine and just run through the ravine
Okay.
toward the town.
Okay. Dexterity and athletics when you get to the ravine to safely slide down and not. Difficulty 6.
1,
1.
2, 3.
You slide down. And you start running. It runs parallel to the road, just flat out running. Dexterity and athletics again. Difficulty 4.
3.
You run for a good 30 minutes before you finally collapse from exhaustion. You don't hear the thing back there. You kind of peek up over the ravine every once in a while, and it's gone. Slowly, you sit down on the side of the ravine and slide down on your butt and cry.
Cry.
At this point, it kind of camera pulls back, shows the small kid slowly curling up into a ball in this ravine as the camera pulls back up into the sky. Fade to black. The subtitle reads 1992, St. Louis. Fade up from black to a suburban neighborhood. The camera slowly pans down to some screaming in a house, and a front door smashes open, and a young girl at 12 years old runs out of the house, flees the house. A partially clad gentleman comes out of the house screaming and gives chase to the small female figure. And she runs down the street, barefoot, partially clothed, crying. And he's yelling obscenities and for her to stop and come back, or he's going to kill her. And she looks up and sees stars as she's running and just keeps running and running and running. There's a small park at the end of the cul-de-sac that she makes it to, and it's not a gymnary or gymnasium sort of park. It's a small wooded area. And she runs and runs and runs out of breath and takes a hiding place behind some bushes or in some bushes and waits to catch her breath as the lumbering figure of her stepfather comes closer and closer and closer, yelling for her, looking for her, not really seeing her, his hands curled in fists and his knuckles bloodied. And it cuts back to the little girl's face, and she has a black eye, and her lip is twice the size it should be. Michelle! Come here! It's time to take your medicine. He kind of lumbers around one direction. She's trying not to breathe too heavily, but gasping for air to quench her burning lungs, and crying and sniffling. He stops at one point and turns to her direction, and he says, "It's going to be twice as bad when I find you." And he starts coming toward her slowly, slowly. And she hides and tries to cover her mouth. And as he gets closer, her bladder releases and she pees herself as he slowly comes upon her. He's got an evil grin. And he reaches down toward her, and as the hands get closer to the bush, she cringes back. And in a split second, he stands up and gasps for air and staggers around and looks behind him, and she peers around his form and sees a 10-foot tall wolf man death machine. And on his chest there is a scar which looks like a giant letter T that runs from collarbone to collarbone and all the way down to his navel. And this thing is slathering, and it's got gore on its claws. And it takes its arm, lifts it up, swipes again, and the stepfather turns around, and he's got a gash out of his neck. And he falls to 2 knees looking at her, and she looks up above, and the giant were creature looks down at her and winks. And then it bends over slowly and sinks its teeth into his neck, and his eyes, her stepfather's eyes, go blank. Slouches to the ground. The creature continues to tear her ex-stepfather up into tiny chunks. Doesn't say a word to her, doesn't look at her again, and then shimmers out of existence like some dream, like some nightmare, like some avenging angel. And the little girl goes fetal and cries as the camera pulls up out of the park and it goes to black. Text comes up that says 1996 St. Louis. Fade up from black to a banquet hall with lots of guests dressed nicely and a stage, and an announcer over a PA system says, "I would like to introduce to everyone Denise Rothschild and welcome her to her coming out party, debutante party." Everyone starts clapping, the music swells, and the curtains part, and out steps a young 16-year-old Denise Rothschild, looking slightly annoyed but happy that she is here, but annoyed that she is wearing a dress that maybe she wouldn't have picked out, that someone else picked out, and kind of thumbing her nose at the whole having to do this thing with her fake friends that she doesn't really like, that her mom invited, her parents, her friends, daughters and sons. But she still comes up anyway. They put a tiara on her and give her a scepter or something like that, maybe a bouquet of roses. And she looks around and does her best fake smile, takes a bow, and the DJ swells up the music. And does she say anything at this? It's kind of up to her. She would be expected to say something, but would she?
No.
She walks to the mic, smiles, and then turns to the left and walks off stage. And people start giggling. The little kids start giggling. Some of the parents get their feathers ruffled and they get incensed. Her mother glares at her from across the room, having spent thousands of dollars on this coming out party. She huffs and moves off to get another stiff drink. The young girl mounts the steps and walks down carefully because the shoes she's wearing is not what she would normally wear. Does she hand off the flowers? Does she put them in set them down and take off? Or
Oh no,
does she
she's
enjoy
gonna
a party?
keep them. Yeah.
Okay. She starts making her rounds, saying her hellos to everybody, doing the whole scene thing. Too much to her mother's delight, I guess, that she's actually doing what she was asked. The band that she did get is one that you've heard before and you like. They play the music you like. You were able to sweet talk him when he came out and did an audition to play your playlist and not what everybody else wanted to play. So the night goes by. You have hobnobbed. You have snuck a few drinks or a few sips of someone else's drink, and you're feeling pretty good. It's pretty awesome. Do you have many friends at this age?
Yeah.
Couple?
She was the head of the student council, so.
So they're all there. The cheerleaders are there. The jocks are there. And things are going okay when, out of the corner of her eye, the doors pop open, almost like they've been kicked open. And in stomps her stepbrother, who she does not care for a whole lot, but he is blood and her dad's son. So she puts up with him. He makes an entrance as if this is his party and starts congratulating people and thanking them and asks for a beer, and someone shakes their head, no, you're not old enough. But this is Mateo, and he can be a douche if he wants to be a douche. And he's kind of crowding your style now. He's making fun of some of your guests, and your friends all look at you like, oh, what are you going to do? He's here. He's messing things up. And you have a little bit of rage. Not a whole lot, but he's always been annoying. He's a couple years older than you, and he is pulling out his privilege card and telling people what to do. And he's not really nice to your mom either, which kind of sends you off. He's belittling to her because she's not a Ralston and that she is no longer married to your mom. Brings that up as a sore point of interest. But he's got his fancy glasses on. He's got a couple friends with him. He has a bodyguard with him, and he is barely 18. So you're 16, he's 18. And he walks up to you, and he smiles, and he says, little sister, congratulations. Your pubes finally came in. And you were like, everyone around, some of your friends are like, oh my God, did you hear what he said to her? Some of them start snickering, some of the guys. The parents, as you look around, are turning red in the face. And he is making a scene. Like somehow the music would have been louder or should be louder, but it has simmered
dimming.
down at this point when he says this, and it pisses you off. You call him Maddie because he hates Maddie.
Maddie?
Yeah.
Well, Maddie, Dad did tell me never to hit a man with glasses. He told me to hit you with a bat. Oh, not you, just anybody.
I'd like to see you try it, little sis, and he shoves you in the shoulder. You don't have the stones for it. Or should I say the balls? Or maybe you do have balls. I don't know. Why don't you flop them out? His bodyguard looks at you like, this is an everyday thing I have to watch. His friends are like, oh, got her. Show us your balls. Show us your balls. Show us your balls. Show us your balls. And you are red-faced. This dick was not invited.
Okay, you want to see my balls? And I just dropped trow.
That, you mean hike up your dress?
Yeah, well, that.
You hike up your dress and not wearing underwear.
Of course not.
You flash at least 20 of your closest friends. The bodyguard crooks an eyebrow. Matt blushes. Mateo blushes. That's fucking disgusting, sister. You're so gross. This is why we can't go anywhere with you. His friends are howling, laughing. She showed you, man. Oh, it's awesome. She's the best. Your friends, your girlfriends are like, oh my God, she showed coochie. There may be an older lady who screams, throws her arms up, and faints into her husband's arms, as normally happens in these scenes in movies. But yeah, you as you're putting your skirt back down, smiling, you look across the room and your mother is glaring at you. And you think maybe the crowd parted just right for her to get a nice shot of your vajayjay. And her face is red, like she drops her glass of scotch. Shh.
I just hand him the flowers and tell him to leave.
He's still like, the
I
bodyguard.
just put him in his arms.
He takes him. Bodyguard puts his hand on his shoulder and starts moving him backwards. His friends are like pushing on his chest. Oh, we gotta go. We gotta get some beer. And he kind of leaves embarrassed. But you were staying now in a circle. Like your friends have moved out. And you're like in a dance floor where everyone is split out. And on comes your favorite music, your favorite song from 1994, 96.
So something from NSYNC, I'm sure.
Insert NSYNC music at this point.
Probably off the first album.
yeah, it's probably.
We won't play it because of copyright infringement, but you all can play it at home.
Bye, bye, bye.
No, that's their second. That's no string attached, not self-titled.
So can I use Persuasion?
I was 16 at the
To
appropriate time to appreciate.
Just basically
NSYNC.
play it off like, okay, let's move on with our lives, kind of thing.
Yeah, if you,
Okay.
I mean, this is your favorite song. It's on, and you feel like dancing. You just won.
Okay, so this says I roll charisma and subterfuge. Do you want me to
Yes.
roll it, or do you want? people to
Roll
just do
it. Difficulty 6. You've shocked everybody. They're expecting you to say something.
Perfect. What's my target?
Difficulty 6.
Okay,
So 6 and above.
I got 3.
3. You say something witty, and you start dancing, and people start giggling, and your friends just get up, and they're going to support you, so they start dancing behind you, and pretty soon your party is taken off again, and no one remembers Mateo coming in and
Well, and she
saying
remembers to
anything
tell her friends, "Oh yeah, shaving's all the rage." It's the time frame, just saying.
It is. So the rest of this night goes off famously. There is, later on, your father actually shows up with his entourage.
Oh jeez.
And they're in tuxes, and he sweeps up and gives you a big hug and says, Abigail, I'm so proud of you. Here's your gift. And I love you so much. And he hugs you really genuinely and really, really strongly. He is like 7 foot tall, almost 8 foot tall. He's a huge guy. And when he lets you down, he gives you a little box from Tiffany's, yeah. And you open it up, and it's an ankle bracelet that's all diamonds.
Sweet.
Like it's real diamonds. There's nothing fake about this. And he says, is your mother here? I'd like to see her.
Yeah, but before you do that,
Yes.
thought I'd tell you that I flashed everybody before Mom tells you in her drunken stupor. I'm sure she's in by now.
He has a dazed look on his face like, is she joking?
Well, you could thank
And then
Maddie for it.
He stops and goes, Mateo was here? Why was he here? He was not invited.
Yeah.
You flashed your stepbrother in front of your entire guests at your debutante party.
Yeah.
He throws his head back and roars laughter. And the people that are with him, they're all snickering too. He picks you up and hugs you again. Says, that's my baby. And he spins you around a little bit as he hugs you, and he sets you back down. And he goes, I hope you have a wonderful night. And he looks over the crowd because he can easily see over everyone's head and spots your mother. And he says, I'll see you later. And he takes off. It makes his way over to your mother, and you're still doing your thing, but you can easily see him talking to her. And he genuinely likes your mother. I guess something in your history or backstory that you haven't put down, that they just split up. Later on, it'll come to that it's the werewolf thing. He can't stay with anyone too long. Even though she is kinfolk, it's just too much for people to stay in a lifestyle with those intense people. There's a lot of rage, so if they stay with a human family, it usually ends in tragedy.
Yeah.
So, and as he's talking to your mother, you think back of the first time a few years ago when your mother sat you down and explained who you really were while you were throwing a tantrum in a store over something, and you had basically wrecked most of this very posh store because you weren't getting your way. And you were just full of rage and anger and tearing things up and didn't realize it. She sat you down and said, this is who you are and this is what's going to happen. And when you're 18, you're going to transform and you're going to be taken away by your father and everything, because that's what happens. And it was a complete mind fuck that made everything in the world seem ridiculous. And that's why you get such a joy out of sort of tearing up society's rules, because it's all paper mache compared to what's coming on. So it makes it really easy to get your laughs in, your kicks in, and do stuff when you know that you're going to become an 8-foot tall rage monster and tear people up with your claws later on. So the night closes out and it goes to black. Text comes up that says, Blaise, fade up from black. The young girl storms out of the front of her house with a backpack on. Her hair is crazy. She's dressed with stockings, white and purple, and Converse. And she says, fuck you. And at that point, her mother comes to the door, screaming at her, where do you think you're going? I'm fucking out of here. This isn't because you're your stepfather, is it? Yes, it is. You have no evidence. And she goes into a whole tirade and a fight about the incident and what happened to her and the violation, and her mother not believing it and not taking her side at all. And she says, you'll be dead in a couple years, and if you do survive, don't ever come back. The young girl is, I wouldn't come back even if you paid me. And she gives her double birds and walks away slowly. Cut to a couple months later, Michelle is on the streets, crunched down in front of a large stone building, eating a bag of gummy bears and sour worms. And she's hungry, and her hair is tousled, and her bag has been beat up, and her shoes are scuffed and worn down from being on the street. And the doors to the building that she's sitting next to pop open, and this woman full of hair and skirt and perfume pops out and is laughing and puts on her sunglasses and turns to say goodbye to her lunch friends. And she looks down and stares, kind of agape. And then she absentmindedly waves goodbye to her friends while not leaving the gaze of the young girl crouched before her. And she says, what are you doing out here? Are you waiting for somebody?
Not really. No, I'm just hanging out.
Is that your lunch?
Is there a problem with that?
Yeah. You look completely skinny and kind of gross. Would you like dinner or lunch?
Are you, if you're offering, yes. Please?
What do you want to eat?
Really, as long as it's food?
Okay. Well, come with me, she says. And it cuts scene to a montage of the young skinny girl eating plate after plate of food. Steaks are being brought out. Soups are being brought out. And this woman with the hair and the makeup and the smell is sitting across from her, just watching her eat with a curiosity of where the hell is she putting all of this? And they begin to talk, and eventually it becomes to be known that this lady's name is Vanessa, and that she is well off and thinks that it's a waste that this young girl is on the streets and she could be working and having fun and partying. And so the montage continues of nightlife and of the girl being dressed up and bought clothes, and they go drinking, and there's shots, and then there's karaoke and all kinds of crazy stuff. And it becomes a dream blur of her being taught to dance and to move and to walk in heels and dressed up almost like a doll, but not quite. It pulls back, and suddenly the young girl Michelle starts to pick her own clothes and develop her own moves. And eventually there's a night of them visiting a large industrial bar on the east side of St. Louis called Facades. And they walk in, and this is something this young girl has never seen before. It's lights, and it's thumping music, and it's people half naked, and there's men fawning over the ladies everywhere. And Vanessa turns to her and says, "We have the power here. Use it." And the montage continues of the young girl Michelle watching these women use their ability and their power to basically empty the wallets and pockets of these men who are there to enjoy themselves, and the girls enjoy themselves. And it's a pretty shiny thing. Fade to black. Text comes up that says Dax. 2 years later, 1998, fade up from black. Working on a farm in a chicken coop, which is not just a tiny little thing. This thing is like the size of 2 football fields. There are several hundred thousands of chickens in here. And you're going through and feeding them and changing out water or looking for any damage in the feeding system and things like that, any dead chickens. And just kind of remembering that time back when you were stuck in a ravine for a few days maybe, or a day and a half before someone finally came along and found you. And then you took off on the road, I guess. Old man John opens a door and says, "It's feeding time. Come on. Chores are done." Talking to you.
All right.
He walks you back up to the farmhouse. It's out in the middle of Kansas somewhere. You look out on the field. There's a couple dairy farms off in the distance. He has cows, chickens, a couple horses, that sort of stuff. It's a big industrial farm, but he also kept his old family farm through the ages. There is an old dog out in the front yard. You guys walk up to the old house. It's a bi-level with a big porch around it.
How you doing, Spike?
Dog just lays there. It's an old lazy dog. You guys go inside, and Betsy has set out a nice big country meal, all the fixings and everything. They have no kids, have never had kids, so they've sort of taken you in as their son, taking you on. You've been here for a couple years, just helping out, doing little stuff, and decided to stay. So it's about 2 years you've been here. And remember the first time they found you, picked you up hitchhiking out on the road or something, and then asked you if you had anything to do or a job or anything, and he offered you a job, that sort of thing. They've been pretty good going people, paying you well, food and shelter, that sort of stuff. He sits down to dinner and starts talking about the train delivery tomorrow. They're going to start taking the chickens to Tycoon, the chicken manufacturing company, and they'll kill them and skin them and all that stuff. So the next day you guys get up and large trucks arrive and they start loading these chickens on, which they're going to take them to the train and load them up and take them off to the slaughterhouse. It's a pretty gross job. There's chicken shit everywhere. Chickens are everywhere. Feathers are everywhere. They smell funny. It doesn't take too long to load them up, but they are kind of like wrangling cats. They kind of get out and run and do their own thing. So the old man can't wrangle them up if they get free. So most of your job is chasing down the rogue escapees that are trying to be the free-range chickens, and they're not supposed to be. So this happens for a couple more years. You do the same thing every year. Basically, this tycoon place brings out baby chicks. They fill up the houses. You raise them. They send trucks back out. You guys throw them on the trucks, then drive them to this train station, put them on. This time, 2 years later, the old man can't get out and do the work, so you wind up taking charge of that. And loading up the train for the first time by yourself is kind of intimidating. You're putting them all in their stocks or their cages, and it's basically a hallway down the middle of this train car with racks and racks and racks of chickens. I guess they come in coops, and you just kind of toss them in. While you're there, make a perception alertness roll.
8741.
You're putting the last few coops in, and you notice there's a weird metal bar running down the center of the car for no reason. And you also notice there's one up top running down the middle of the roof, and it's attached by a chain, so it hangs down just above your head, but it's just out of place. You don't know why they would have a bar. Looks like the bar on the floor has been sort of welded on with a clamp to hold it in place to keep it from rolling around, but it serves no purpose. In all of your chickening, you've never seen anything like this in the coops, or it's just odd. And it gives you sort of like the hair in the back of your neck stands up a little bit, but you're not sure why. There's some other guys there from Tycoon. They got the white lab coats on and the helmets and stuff. And one of the guys pokes his head and says, "Everything okay in there? You about done?"
Yeah, almost done.
All right. Let's hurry up. We got to get these things to slaughterhouse. He walks off with his clipboard. Does some other stuff. You're kind of looking at this thing. It just keeps bugging you. And you begin to know. Roll another perception alertness roll.
6-6-10-4.
Okay. You're standing there, and you slowly begin to realize that the chickens have gone quiet. They've done this a few times. You remember a couple years ago walking through the coops one day, and they all kind of got real quiet, and it kind of freaked you out. But you left and you didn't think anything about it. And it may have happened to you think another time, but you didn't pay any attention to it. This time, all the chickens on this train car have stopped making any noise or fluttering or anything. And as you're looking around at them, because they're all right at your eye level and above, they're not looking at you. They're all have their heads cocked, and they're looking at the bar down below. And then when you look at over your other shoulder, you notice the others are all have their heads cocked, looking up at the other bar above them.
I'm looking around the bar, trying to see what they're looking at.
You don't? It's just a metal bar. It's a cold to the touch when you touch it, but it gives you a weird feeling. You're not sure what it is, but it's just everything's odd all of a sudden. It's like you've stepped into the Twilight Zone. The chickens are in the Twilight Zone with you, and they're looking at one bar. The other side of the chicken coop train is looking at the other one.
I think I'm just going to say so long to the chickens and disembark the train.
Okay. Turn around. You start to get off, and one of the chickens starts clucking voraciously at you, and the others are all still looking at one side's looking at the bar below, one side's looking at the bar above, and there's one chicken right at your head. Roll your perception at animal kin as you're eye to eye with this chicken who's looking at you.
4, 3, 1.
With that, you go, nah. Crazy chickens. You get off the train. You see the other trains are sitting down, and they're starting to close up the doors. And guy's going on, he's making a checkbox on each one. Eventually comes in, he goes, any problems?
They're pretty acting weird, but I guess it's all right.
As you turn around, he turns around and looks at the chickens. They're all kind of clucking and doing their own thing. You're like, what the hell? What was that? And he's like, how do chickens act weird? They're chickens.
Well, you know, one side was looking down, the other side was looking up, and they weren't clucking.
Make a perception or alertness, I'm sorry.
Alertness. 9, 5, 4, 3.
You see his eyes go a little wide when you mention the bar on the bottom and the bar on the top. Like, and then he regains his composure and he goes, what do you mean? What do you mean the bars? What bar? He's lying with the roll you just made.
Well, what? Come on, I'll show you.
All right. He gets up
Board
in
the
the
train.
thing, yeah.
See?
Make a
Bar
perception
here,
awareness roll.
Bar down here. 8, 7, 3, 2.
The chickens are all looking at you. They're clucking and doing their own thing, but they are all lined up at the edge of the cage, and they're all watching you. They're all doing the sideways, eyeballing you on both sides.
Now, see, Tycho, man, this is freaking me out.
What, that bar down there? Well, those are supposed to be unloaded. There's a latch right down there. Do you see it? Can you get it? I'll do this one back here. He starts to fiddle with the latch at the back.
Now I'm just going to watch him.
Fiddling with it. Pulls his thumb up. Ow. Are you going to help me?
No.
All right, then get out of here. I'll do it myself.
All right.
All right. You turn around and whack.
Did I run into something?
Everything goes black.
No.
Everything comes to light again, and you're laying on the floor of this train car as it's moving, and all the chickens are looking at you. And they're not clucking anymore.
I'm wondering how long I've been out.
Oh, man. Damn chickens. Stand up, you kind of stretch. Ow. It's a nice goose egg on the back of your head. You kind of go over the door, and it's locked. They locked you in. And you're on the train, bound for Tycoon, whatever it is. Kentucky.
Oh, this is swell. I guess I'll just have to sit here and ride with you chickens. First, I'm going to see if there's another way out.
There is a hatch in the top, but it looks like it's locked as well. You go up and try and mess with it. Maybe locked from the outside.
All right, chickens. Looks like it's just you and me. I sit down and wait for the train.
Perception awareness.
10-8-3-2.
Out of the corner of your eye, you see something. It looks like movement that's not inside the coupes toward the front of this car near the ground.
On the inside?
On the inside. And as you're trying to see, what was that? Just caught out of the corner of your eye. You notice the chickens in the bottom coupes are smashing themselves away from the edge of where you think that whatever shadow might have moved. They're not freaking out. They're being super quiet and just basically smashing each other up against the cage.
I'm going to stand up and walk over and see what's what.
You look over, and the chickens near the edge are all looking in the corner of this train car at the bottom. And as you get over, you kind of peer in. And it's nighttime. You see or it's evening. And you see sort of light passing through the sides of this ventilated car, and there seems to be something down in the corner. You're not sure quite what it is. It's not moving. It doesn't look like it's furry. Doesn't look like it's skin, or it doesn't look like it's feathery, but it's really black looking.
I'm going to kick at it.
You rear back and do a dexterity and...
Not a hard kick, just like a kick to see, like
nudge it?
A nudge kick.
Nudge it, and this thing kind of lifts up and plops back down. And then you see two little green eyes pop open, and they are lit from inside.
Now I'm a little freaked out.
The chickens freak out. The chickens nearby start panicking and fluttering, and suddenly there's feathers everywhere, and you think they might be kind of crushing each other, like for real this time, not just squishing each other. And this thing slowly uncurls itself, and it looks like a four-legged, almost lizard-like thing, but really light. Like if you were to take a kimono dragon and shrink it down a little bit, that's what this thing looks like. And it opens up its mouth, and it's got razor-sharp teeth, and it hisses.
I'm now pulling out my knife, and out of pure fear, I'm going to just stab at it.
Okay. Dexterity and melee. Difficulty is your knife's difficulty. If it's a knife, it's a 4. If it's your machete, it's a 6.
2 successes.
Yeah. Stab this thing. Roll your strength plus 1. This is all lethal.
4, right? 3 successes.
Okay. You stab this thing right in the middle, and it starts squealing and flipping and spraying. It's not blood. It's a weird, oily material. Make a dexterity roll, dexterity and athletics, to kind of get out of the way of this gore, weird gore.
6, 4, 3, 1.
You step back just in time as it flips, and this black, sticky liquid lands on some chickens, and they start to dissolve right in front of you, screeching, and they kind of die, and they start melting. This thing kind of scrambles out, and it puts itself kind of on that bar. And as you watch for a second, it's not hissing or anything, but you see the stab wound slowly start to heal up. Like whatever this bar is may be healing this creature.
Do I have my rucksack with me?
Not with you. Not at this point.
I'm going to continue to fight it. I have nowhere to go.
Stab it again.
1.
Okay. As you go in for the stab, it launches at you with its mouth. Roll your damage. It's your strength plus 1.
Am I going off the 4 still?
Yes.
All right.
For damage, it's 6. It's always
6. Always 6. Okay. 2.
2. You stab this thing again, and it screeches, but it turns around and grabs your arm. 3, 4. It does 4 levels of lethal damage. So starting at the top, where it says bruised, put an X through it, and the next 3 down. So you have 4 levels of lethal damage.
Wounded.
Yep. So the minus number is to all of your physical rolls. This thing bites you good, and you think it may have some sort of venom in its bite. You are able to pull free and stand back as this thing kind of recoils and settles back down on the beam. You feel yourself getting more and more worked up as whatever this is starting to course through your veins now. And you look down your arm, and there's some weird green veins that seem to be running back through your arm up as you are starting to breathe heavier and get more upset. It feels like your arm's on fire. We are going to have you do your stamina and primal urge. The panic is this thing is creeping up your arm and going towards your chest, and it's on fire, so you don't know what it's going to do when it gets to the rest of you. And your hand feels really weak. I need difficulty is 6.
3.
And you do it. Gasping for air, panic that you've been poisoned, you think you're going to die. There's chickens everywhere. This thing is still there, and it seems to be healing up its wounds by being on or near this bar on the floor. You look down your arm again, and you notice that your fingers are getting longer and beefier. Your forearm is starting to puff up, and you think for a split second that it's the venom, and you panic a little more. So your heart's racing now. Your whole body feels like it's on fire. You look down to your other hand, and it's doing the same thing. It's getting larger. Seems like the chicken coops are sort of shrinking. You look down to your pants, and you're ripping through your pants. Your legs are bending backwards and doing this strange, like your feet are extending. It's incredibly painful, and whatever's happening to you is causing you to panic more, which means you're flipping out more. It takes just a couple seconds before you're finally in your full transformative Krynos war form. You're standing about 8 or 9 feet tall, bulging, rippling muscles, fur everywhere, a tail. You have a tail now. And this thing looks at you with a weird knowing and a hatred that you have never experienced from another creature before, and it hisses. And you have got these huge talons on your fingers, on your feet, and you see nothing but red. There is no thought other than fight or flight at this moment. And whatever weapon you had is on the floor because you've been transforming. What do you do?
I'm seeing red and rage.
Chickens are freaking out. Yeah, there's feathers everywhere. It's all slow motion, feathers and spit and venom. And
I think I'm just going to go in for the kill.
All right. So these are going to be down to the basic bite, claw, and that's pretty much it. Because everything else above that is hard to think to do while you're in this form.
I don't have bite and claw written down. I don't know that.
It should be on the second sheet at the very bottom. It's all written out.
Yeah, I see it.
So this is your new dexterity. So at the top of your second sheet, it should have your new dexterity total because you've just gained 1 dexterity. So dexterity plus brawl. Difficulty is 5 for a bite. If you want to claw, difficulty is 6. You do more damage with the claw.
Yeah, I'm going to claw.
Okay. Difficulty 6.
Yeah, 1.
That's all it takes. Strength. This is your new strength, which is plus 4, plus 2.
5.
You tear this thing's head off. You go down and just shred it with your bare hands or bare claws. The chickens are freaking out. There is gore everywhere. It's splashing you. It's burning. You look down at your arm and you see the green veins are slowly retracting back toward the bite. And you see it maybe actually leaking out of the bite now. Your body seems to be healing itself really fast. So for this turn, erase your lowest damaged box because you will get that back every turn automatically unless it's aggravated. Now that you're in this form, make another perception roll.
8, 4.
These 2 beams are emitting some sort of weird energy, and now that you're in your large form, you're looking at some of these chickens that are nearest to this beam, and they seem to have small little tumors on them, or their eyes are weeping, or this is some sort of metal that is giving off some sort of radiation that seems to be corrupting these chickens as they're going to market. This freaks you out even more. It pisses you off. Roll your rage.
6. Still.
Difficulty for this is going to be really low. It's going to be like 4.
Then 7.
You were incensed with 7. You explode.
Literally?
Is that right? You might. How many successes did you get?
7.
You have surpassed going into a frenzy and have gone into what they call the thrall of the worm. All right. This is not good.
I think I might be joining the worm.
The safe zone for going into frenzy is going to be 4 to 5 successes. Then you're in the zone. You can really just do crazy shit.
Nah, I had 7.
For 7. For all you Hamids out there, this is everyone playing the game. Whenever you go into the thrall of the worm, you lose control of yourself pretty radically. Normally, if you go into a frenzy, you can stop it by spending a willpower point and keep acting and thinking and doing things. When you get this many successes, you're kind of screwed. Each breed has a different affinity to an aspect of the worm. And with Hamons, it's called Eater of the Souls. This version of the worm is pretty terrible. It drives its minions to eat humans, wolves, and any other Garou. When you are in the thrall of the worm, you must wits, difficulty 7 right now. And whenever you kill or incapacitate an opponent, if you botch, you will stop and eat the kill. So don't botch this.
2 successes.
Okay.
I
Fine.
assume.
You don't have to stop and kill, but this is pretty awful. And it keeps going for a little bit.
I could have eaten a lot of chicken.
Yeah. So you're still in a frenzy, which means fight or flight. And since you're here with this thing, fighting is probably just taking over at this point. If you want to spend willpower points, you can kind of direct this, but these chickens are corrupted now, and for some reason, somewhere in your soul, this cannot last. So
I don't want it to last.
there is a howl that goes off. You don't even know where it comes from. You actually think it might be someone else somewhere else howling like this, and for the next couple minutes, you tear this bar out of the floor, throw it through the door, tearing off the door, tear the bar down from the ceiling, throw it out the door, howl again, and then you start tearing up chickens terribly.
Tasty.
So there's a montage of like claws grabbing, these little tiny chain wire cages being ripped apart, and these chickens are just being shredded. You're not even eating them. You're destroying them so they don't get eaten, I guess, by anybody else. Cut to the train still going the next morning. You're waking up on the floor naked, covered in chicken blood, and chickens are everywhere. Feathers are everywhere. It's blowing the doors open, so everything's just a mess. And the train is slowing down, so that's what wakes you up. And it eventually stops. I think it's doing a crossover or something. It's changing lines or whatever. And as it's doing this, you hear voices outside talking. Eventually, a figure comes in and peeks his head in. And he says, "You have made quite a mess, mister." And he hops up slowly into the car and looks down at you. This is a man of Middle Eastern descent wearing kind of traveler's clothes, simple pants, simple shirt, walking stick. He's got a backpack on, long beard, and his hair's kind of tousled. He says, you took care of business, it looks like.
I'm going to scramble back and say, "What do you mean?"
We were trying to track you down, and before this got out of hand, but it looks like you worked it out. Didn't kill anybody. That's a good thing. Let me introduce myself. My name is Basir, and I am what you might call a silent strider. They also call me Running Shadow. I'm here to direct you and make sure you stay out of trouble. I'm sorry I couldn't be here for your first change, but in case you're wondering, you are now one of the mythical creatures that you may have heard of when you were a child. You're a shapeshifter. You're a werewolf. You're a Garou, like me. And as he stands there, he slowly changes into an even larger form, which is the Kronos form, which you think is familiar from what you saw of your hands and everything. And he says, "This is what you are. Now we have to go." And he slowly shifts back down. But when he shifts, his clothes don't get shredded. They slowly the fur goes back inside and the clothing is all safe and protected. He says, pulls out some clothes out of the bag. "Here's some jeans, shirt. Let's go. We got to go. We'll get you some shoes on the way."
Throw the clothes on and cautiously follow.
Okay. We'll cut scene to a little farther down the road. You've gotten your shoes, you've got your knapsack with all your stuff in it, and you are somewhere outside of Branson. And he says, "You've got to go northeast. They're expecting you in St. Louis. You have 2 days to get there." He's explained a little bit about your nature, who you are, the forms, all that stuff. Just enough to get you there. Stay away from humans right now. If you want to run in the wolf form, you will get there faster. And he gives you a location. Cahokia Mounds, St. Louis. It's just northeast of the city.
All right, Basir.
You got to get there before the full moon.
All right, Basir. I'll get there. Thank you very
Good
much
luck.
for your help.
Round Spider, she is the one you want to seek. She is one of my kind. And she knows you're coming. With that, he does a very courteous bow, and he turns around and starts walking in the direction.
All right. I'll watch him go for a little while, and then I'll take off.
Okay. And we'll draw that scene there. Fade to black. Text comes up that says Blaise. Fade up from black. cuts to the young girl on a pole, spinning around with glittering streamers on her elbows, and her hair is crazy and the makeup is obscene, but it's all framing her animal sensuality. And the girl is dancing her heart out in front of a teeming sea of men who are throwing money at her. And she gets done with her dance routine and walks in the back, and it's the back scene of a strip club where girls are getting dressed and preparing and congratulating each other and talking about clothes and outfits and routines. And Vanessa stops in and says, "How was tonight? You looked really good out there."
Yeah, it felt really good. And
Good.
The money's happening.
The money always happens. All you have to do is flirt, and they'll throw money at you. So we have a special guest that's coming tonight with a lot of money. They've been here for a while, and she has been asking for you, asking for a private room with you. How do you feel about that? Are you ready to take this to the next level?
Why not?
Okay, she says, like I said, lots of money. I don't know too much about her, but I was given her name a couple weeks ago, and I didn't want to throw her at you or you at her until I was sure. So we'll get some champagne set up to the Cupid room, and you could entertain her there. Again, with a woman, it's your discretion on rules. If it's the guys, you have to follow the ascribed rules. And have fun. Enjoy it. And she whisks around in her skirt and her hair and her perfume and exits the room to go out front, where she starts greeting people and clapping, money down on trays, and drinks are brought out for people. So you go change and you shower and you get into something nicer and head up to the Cupid room, which is a not too garish room. Lots of little ivory cupids around and frolicking sort of things. A bed. It's actually one of those round couches. And you open the door, and she is sitting on the round couch, dressed in black, very classy. Her hair is done up, and she's got these black gloves that look like they're leather, but you don't think they are, and they go up to her shoulder almost. And she's wearing like a strapped dress that's very snug, and she's just looking at you with her champagne glass. And she says, "Close the door."
Of course. Do so.
Close the door. Come forward a little bit.
I step forward, swaying deliberately, all the hips.
The lights in here are set up in concentric rings, so you walk in and out of shadows, and as you get there's a place to stop and do a routine. You've heard them, how they work this room. It's pretty easy to they're all kind of set up that way. You stand and you pose, and she says, "Turn around slowly." Turn around slowly. She says, "You are much more captivating in real close quarters. You have an animalism about you. I don't know what it is, but it's very, I don't know, it's something else. Come closer."
Do?
She says, "Now entertain me. I paid good money for this." You want to do your routine?
Yeah.
Dexterity and
Performance?
Difficulty 5. You're gonna shoot kind of low. It's a normal routine. You gotta give everybody.
Since I have specialties, those 10s explode,
They're
or just
count
count
as
as 2.
Yep.
So, and you said 5,
Yep.
so 8
8.
successes.
You go through your typical routine, dancing, twirling, pausing at just the right moment, and then continue on. You get done, and she looks at you with sort of a bored look. Now, I suppose that's what everyone else expects out of you. I expect a little bit more. Why don't you try again? Kind of incensed a little bit.
A little bit there, yeah.
Maybe roll your rage a little bit. We'll do difficulty 9. You're not
Okay.
too pissed about this, but she kind of called you out on your super awesome job. You did great at
Yeah.
this. This should be no problem.
I got 1.
One?
success. Yeah.
You're a little pissed, but I think you can choke it back. Spend a willpower point. You can
Okay.
drain that off into determination. So you start going to your next routine, and she pours herself a little more champagne and kind of watches you. So your performance. What difficulty do you want to set for this?
Let's say 7.
7. Do you want to spend a willpower point?
Yes. Automatic
Right.
success. Yes, that's what that is.
You can always spend a willpower point to get an automatic success on any roll. So if you wind up getting no successes, you can't botch.
2.
2 with a 7, not bad. You pull out some moves that maybe you haven't tried in a while, but get people to usually fall on their ass. She looks at you. So that's a little better. Maybe you should go and try a little harder. And she's got this strange little southern drawl almost. Like you're performing for a princess maybe. You don't know. It's odd.
Yeah, but now my professional pride is up.
Now you're, roll your rage again.
I'm a little bit angry, yeah.
I'd say an 8. She's wild with the dice. Wild, I tell you.
So far, 1. 1.
Spend a willpower point. You can knock it back down again. It's a little pissy. You're a little determined. You've got your, you're getting set. And you start in again. And this is probably going to be an 8. Or do you want to jump it up to a 9 and spend a willpower point? This will be like no-handed cartwheels and crazy moves. Maybe even tearing some clothes off in the process.
Yeah.
She has ticked you off.
Yes. I'm going to. We'll try for 9. Spend
Okay.
the willpower. Go for 9.
All right. You've already got one success. You can't fail.
Right.
How great can you do? There you go.
There we go. Total of 4.
4. Nice. You get done. You are sweaty. You are worn out. And she perps a little smile out of the corner of her mouth. Now that's much better, she says. Why don't you come over here and sit next to me? Talk me up a little bit. Chat me up a little bit. You just sit down next to her and you are like catching your breath, and she gives you a champagne glass to fill your own. You take it. These things are like 300 bottles a pop, so the more you drink, the more she has to get. It's all good.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
And she's very cool. She's very collected. When you get closer to her, you realize whatever makeup job she has, it is flawless. Like there are no pores. It looks like alabaster almost, but it's been peached up, or maybe it's peached up and she's put some white powder on to make herself look very statuesque. Her makeup's perfect. The eyeliner, everything is just spot on. Like she's been doing it a long time. Why don't you tell me about yourself? Where did you come from? All this. So manipulation?
Yes. Sorry.
Subterfuge?
My brain went away
That's all
there
right.
for a second. All right, manipulation, subterfuge, no specialties. Just
Any
nice.
willpower?
No. This is just chatting.
Okay.
Well, sexy chatting, but chatting.
Exactly. Chatting her up.
Sexy chat.
What's my difficulty?
We'll say 7.
Okay.
Pretty
Do
standard.
ones cancel out successes?
No.
Okay.
But if you have no successes and you have
Right, and
ones,
then-
you're botched.
I got 2.
2. You spin the tale about going to college and working your way through and doing this and that. And she listens and she sounds interested. And when you're done, she kind of stops and she goes, well, that was fancy. I'm sure that works with all the boys. But tell me, who are you really? And with that, there's a strange pull from inside that you feel kind of compelled to tell her your life story. So, roll your willpower.
Okay. 7. Do I have a difficulty?
Difficulty is 7.
1.
1. You think you could fight it off, and you start talking, and then you wind up back around talking about yourself. It's very odd. Like you're talking, and before you know it, you are telling her about the incident with your parents, with your stepfather, hiding the angel that saved you. And as you're telling her all this, she looks genuinely intrigued. And then she asks you, well, why do you suppose that angel saved you? Was it for another purpose? Is it for a destiny, maybe? Something else? Her eyes are kind of lit up now. They look more alive than they were before. She looked simply bored before. Now she's a little hot about it. And that kind of, it's kind of what you were going for, I guess, when you came in. So you feel kind of, yeah, I guess. This is weird. You've never
it's
told
really
anybody.
weird, and
Right.
yeah, I don't like talking about it. I don't know. I never really thought about it.
Well, why don't you whisper it to me, she says. And when she does, there's another tug at your insides to lean in close and whisper what you think it's about or what you think it was. Willpower roll. Difficulty 8 this time.
Again, no, 2.
Okay. You kind of pull back, and you're like, this is weird. And for a split second, you go to stand up, and you realize you've leaned into her to whisper. And you start talking to her, and she gets closer and closer and closer. And as you're talking about what you think this savior was to you, you feel white hot pain on your neck, like someone has poured acid down you. But you're still talking. It's like you're lulled into like euphoria and pain at the same time.
I start trying to pull away a little bit. I don't know what's going on.
Dexterity, strength.
Just
as
straight
you
strength?
grab her shoulders and try to pull back. Yeah.
2 6s and a 5.
You pull back for a second, and as you look at her, she has blood around her mouth, and she's smiling. You are fantastic, she says. And you put your hand on your neck, and you pull back, and you've got blood all over your hands. She has fucking bit you.
I stagger up and back, like, this is definitely not.
And you look back at her,
Fuck.
and without putting her hands down, she just stands up in a weird, slow, like you've seen film turn reverse. She just stands up. She goes, now where do you think you're going? The party has just started. And she puts her hands out, and out from her, it looks like the shadows in the wall start coming out, but you notice they're actually coming out from behind her. And they start creeping around the room, and as they creep over the lights go out. She goes, well, you're not going anywhere, sweetheart. And you look down, and these tendrils of shadow come out of the ground and start snaking towards you. Roll your rage. This is something you have never seen. You're asking yourself if you're awake, if you're asleep. Difficulty is 7.
2.
2. You are furious at this. She has fucking bit you. Now crazy shit's happening. Did she slip you acid? You have no idea, but this lady is the enemy. You either want to run or you want to tear her apart.
No, I want to claw her eyes out.
With that, you leap at her. Make a dexterity and athletics as you're leaping into the air in heels and a torn dress with sequins.
I wear these heels a lot.
Difficulty
They're super
is 7.
comfortable. 2.
I can run in these heels. You leap through the air, and as you're just about to put your hands on her neck, you stop midair. And these velvety shadow things are pouring up, almost dripping up from the floor, and they have you suspended. And they're wrapped around your legs, like you have jumped like full action jump and stopped, like Matrix style, like burp. Rage roll. This is not a dream. Whatever this is, you're not seeing it. This is real. And she laughs.
1.
Okay. Your anger is rising. It's getting worse. And she is just laughing at you. And she starts to come towards you. And your arms aren't really your arms anymore. They've been held. And she leans in to go for your wound again on your neck. Do you want to try and get away? Or,
yeah. Oh,
okay.
yeah. I'm
Dexterity
struggling like mad.
and actually strength and athletics. You're pulling back now and writhing against these things. Difficulty 6.
2.
2. You snap your hand free, and she's coming straight in. Do you want to claw, snap?
Yeah, I want to go like claw her
Okay.
at her face.
Dexterity and brawl. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, it's just making sure, because that's the skill I actually have.
Difficulty is a 6. I'm sorry.
6.
I got 5.
So 4 plus your strength plus 2,
And 4 plus strength plus 2 and dice.
and add 2 more dice to that.
Let's go for the red ones. Difficulty of 6, yes?
Difficulty 6. Yes.
And does nothing explodes on
No.
damage rolls. I could deal with that.
Wow.
6.
You come through, swoosh, and your hand has left her face with deep gouges, and she shrieks and leans back, and all the things that were holding you there drop, and you see this weird, dark, syrupy blood sort of dripping down slowly out of her face as she steps back, shaking her face. What the fuck was that?
Bitch!
And you drop to the ground and hop back up, and you are taller than you should be, and your clothes are exceptionally tighter than they should be. And you look down your arms, and it's embarrassing. Your arms are very hairy. And with your legs, why? What's happened? And you notice your toes in your heels have grown nice long talons out the front, and you're kind of clicking around on the floor. Your hands also are larger, and you've got these nice, awesome claws in your hands.
Actual claws.
Yeah, like the painted parts have moved down, and they're pretty nasty looking. And she goes, "What are you?" She stands back up again, and she stands in like a fighter pose this time.
I don't know. Let's find out. And then I go for her again.
Yep. And at that time, she throws her arms out again. Roll your dexterity and brawl.
Difficulty 6, we
Yes.
said? 4.
4. None get through. As you swipe at her, she steps back. It's like she's there and then she's not. She's off to the side all of a sudden. And you swipe down through the shadow form that was her. As she's off to the side, you see the claw marks from before slowly heal up a little bit, but it looks like she's like concentrating. But they're not healing up as fast as she seems to be expecting. Again, the tendrils start shooting out. She's got about 8 of these things, and these things look about the size of a bodybuilder's bicep. They're thick, and they are undulating. So, like, it's watching water come out. It's like watching water. It keeps pumping into it, so it's getting larger and larger. And these 8 kind of take up form around her, like they're protecting her almost. What do you want to do? It's your turn.
That's gross. And I'm going to lunge for her again, trying to not...
Okay.
At this point, I kind of want to rip her face off.
Yes. Difficulty 6.
3.
3. You swipe at her, and as you swipe down, these tendrils sort of move in the way, and you've clawed through one, and it evaporates almost. The frustration of this is pretty intense. Make your rage roll again. Difficulty is 6.
2.
2. You seem to be holding it together. You're not frenzying, but you are pissed. You look down again, and you have somehow, or actually she starts getting shorter, and the tendrils are suddenly down another 1.5 feet. And your head's kind of scraping on, you feel like you're scraping on the ceiling, and you look up, and you still got about 4 or 5 inches down, but you look down, and your nice clothes are all shredded on the ground, and you have a fully hairy, muscled figure with your legs that have bent backwards now, and you've got this tail that seems to be wagging behind you. In one of the back walls is a mirror, and you catch a glimpse of yourself, and you're the angel that avenged you from before. And you have this bursting heart feeling at this moment of, it's the same person who saved you. Maybe you saved yourself. And all of the rage that you had that night comes back. And you see Red, and she's there, and she's laughing. And one of the tendrils reaches out and grabs your ankle, which is now distended and got nice big talons on it this time. What do you do?
Kick out at that and...
Dex and athletics to kick out of it. It's got a vice-like grip as it wraps around your leg. Difficulty 6
so
for claws.
6.
This goes through the defensive tendrils, and you get right to her. Roll your damage. -2. It's your strength. Your new strength is strength +4.
Okay, right. Oh, right, because I've changed forms.
Right. Actually, roll one more dice because your dexterity is one more up too.
Oh, yeah.
For your attack.
No, doesn't matter.
Okay.
So my strength is up to 7.
+2. Plus whatever rolled over, whatever extra dice you had. So 5 more dice because
Oh,
you got
okay.
6 successes. That's where this gets crazy. Difficulty 6.
Difficulty 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You are a flurry of, or a blur of claws tearing down through these tendrils. They're shredding as you get to her, and the surprise on her face is like flowing chocolate. And you just start tearing into her just before you can think. Your hands are in the air, and you have shredded her like curtains almost. And her flesh is peeling off, and she's shrieking. And you notice as she's shrieking that her mouth, her canines are extended. And the shadows are doing weird things around you. They're flickering almost like someone is taking a light and moving it back and forth, and it's blinking and shrieking and shrieking and shrieking. And you finally just tear down through her breastbone and her shirt and through the rib cage. They just kind of clap. And the last one you sweep down, and you get the heart, and you pierce it and pull it, and it pops out, and this creature stops with a shocked look on her face and falls over backwards. And as you're holding it, you squeeze the blood out of the heart and just tear it all up, shred it. You're standing there huffing and look in the mirror, and you're covered in gore. This is a nice big Krynos-looking thing with tall ears. But your tail's wagging.
Reddish fur, so the
Reddish
blood
fur.
like blends right in. Accentuates.
And this, in a split second, you realize this very wealthy client is dead in your friend's bar, and you went up here to see her. So a panic takes you over. At this point, it's not a frenzy, but you think fleeing is the best option. There's only one door in, one door out.
Yeah, I'm running and thanking everything that the whole the lights are kept pretty dim. A lot of these places, mood lighting is not great for spotting.
As you're in Kronos form, you're thinking, leave now.
Yeah.
So dexterity and athletics. Difficulty 7.
7. I got 1.
1. You go over and grab the doorknob, and it pops off. And you look down your hand, and you're howl. Another dexterity athletics.
2. 3.
2.
3.
Punch. Your hand goes through the door like it's cardboard. And this feels satisfying. And now you think you could leave. As you pull your hand out, the door comes off with it. Smashes into splinters. It's not a very well-made door in a strip club. Just in case you got to break it down. And you lop out into the hallway, which is, shag carpeting and velvet stuff on the walls. And you look to one side and you don't see anybody, and you look back to the other side and someone sticks their head out. It's one of your friends, maybe? And she looks at you with abject horror, and she goes canatotic and falls down into the fetal position and starts crying. Like in the doorway, like she looks out and goes, oh, falls down and just starts shrieking and like whimpering and shivering. You need to get out.
Right, I'm looking for the nearest window.
No windows in here. You have to go downstairs.
Okay, then we're going to do this as fast as possible because this is...
As you think that, you are on all fours, loping down the hallway like a gigantic dog, tail keeping you in balance. You almost kind of run up the wall as you go to turn the corner down the stairs, and it's not a sea of people. There's about 4 or 5 people at the bottom that look up after, and you think they may be answering to the howl or the shriek of terror from your friend. They lose their minds too and run off screaming as you make it down to the bottom of the stairs. There's a hallway that leads out into the dance floor, and to your left there is the kitchen area, which does have an exit out the back for loading purposes.
Kitchen.
Again, loping on all fours, tearing up carpet as you're running. You burst through the swinging doors, and there's Al, and there's Jack, and there's Dan the dishwasher. Dan shits his pants when you come in. Al picks up a knife and throws it at you and misses horribly, but he looks determined to kill you. The other guy, just keeps shaking his head like, I'm not seeing this, I'm not seeing this.
I leap over a counter somewhere
And
to find a door.
Dex and athletics. As you now realize, you're on slippery concrete or slippery tile and
claws.
stainless steel tables and claws clicking and clacking. Difficulty 8.
3.
3. You definitely leap over the tables, head toward the delivery door, smash them open, and you're out into the night air in Sauget, Illinois. The smell of exhaust and lube is deafening. And you howl again because you've escaped once more, but you are your own avenging angel, and you run off into the night feeling avenged and being the avenger. You are drawn to run to the northeast for some reason. The moon is there. You're heading toward the moon. It's a full moon. It feels glorious. You're running over highways and through fields, and you are laughing to yourself, but through a wolf's throat, which sounds like a growl, but you're not sure. Fade to black. Text comes up that says, Abigail. Fade up from black. Camera comes back up to a scene where you are in one of your mother's many houses, and you're in one of the training rooms or weight rooms. It's a long hallway, and there is a pad set up on the floor, and your mentor is across from you in a fencing gear and is pushing you and pushing you and pushing you, and you guys are just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I guess the audience wouldn't know who it is, but it's you and your mentor. Finally, you guys take off your helmets and congratulate each other, and she gives you some words of advice, but it's not congratulatory. It's like, you need to work on your backhand, you need to work on your upswing or whatever, and it kind of pisses you off. What is your melee fencing skill? Is it 4?
Is it just melee?
Yeah.
3.
3. Okay. So it's something you love, but it's something that challenges you, and that's what makes it so frustrating for him to not quite give that back. Does that make sense? And you know of him, he is actually a werewolf guru that your father has talked into coming by and helping you with fencing lessons. So actually, we'll step back. That's a woman. It's not a guy. Sorry. She has a weird sense of humor like you do. She sees things kind of wickedly and obtusely sometimes, so you guys kind of get along. Her name is Denise Preston, and she's a member of your father's tribe, a Silver Fang. So she's into art. She's into all kinds of crazy stuff, painting, drawing, sculpture, but performance art kind of hooked her, and fencing is something she's always loved, so she works that into a lot of shows where she is basically cutting apart objects and things. It's very strange. She's always forward, she's always blunt, and she's pretty critical of most stuff, but you guys have a lot of fun. So you get done, and she says, we're going to go again, so catch your breath, get some water, and I'm not going to hold back this time. You're old enough, and we're gonna test this out. We're going to make you better. So you get some water, get kind of your wind back, and put your helmet on, and she stands, and she says, on guard, and starts at you. Roll your wits and alertness. This is initiative, which we didn't do with everybody else because that was kind of they were all a little lopsided.
I'm sorry, what's in what?
Wits and alertness. Difficulty is 4, I believe.
2.
2? She got 3, so she's a little faster out of the gate, and she strikes. She lunges and strikes. You can try to parry her with your full roll, but you will be on complete defensive. You won't be able to make any attack this turn.
And that's still melee, or is that?
Right, it would be your dexterity and melee.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, you can also split your dice pool. So if you want to take your total dice and split them in half and use one of the pools to defend with and the other one to attack with, you can do that as well.
Okay, I will do that.
All right, she attacks full on. So whatever you're going to defend with, the difficulty is your weapon, which is your sword.
I don't think we gave one to me.
Your sword would be a 6 difficulty.
Okay. 2.
And you parry her strike, barely. What do you have left?
3 more.
Roll.
2.
2. All right. You parry her and stab her, or stick her with the end of the thing. Or I think I'm going to sneeze. Stick her with the end of the sword. And she stops. And she says, she backs up and she pulls her foil up again. And then she starts in again. So, okay. You want to parry any of this?
Yeah.
Okay.
1.
1. She advances, knocks the foil to the side, and then she jabs you really hard. Like you feel this through your vest, and you know you're going to have a big ass bruise on your breastbone. She pops you good. And she laughs and then steps back. Do you want to attack?
I can't use rage to do more
Not
damage.
just yet.
Oh. Nothing.
Okay. You are stunned. You're kind of thrown back, and you kind of like just throw a sword out at her and miss her completely. And she laughs, and it annoys you. And she, without even saying on guard, she lunges back at you again. Full barrel. Do you want to defend any? Block?
Parry.
Parry. Okay. It's basically the same thing. Dex melee, same difference for block, which is 5. So you have a lower difficulty for that. I'm sorry.
2.
Okay. She pulls through with 3, and it gets just past your defenses, and she sticks you in the shoulder. And she drives at you again. So what are you going to... Do you have anything left?
Yeah.
Okay. Roll it.
Just 1.
She adeptly snaps it out of the way easily. Next turn. She charges in again. Usually when she does this training, she'll show you and then back off, but this time she keeps going forward. And she's pushed you back about 3 or 4 feet, and you've got about 7, I don't know how long, it's 7 feet left. It's like a 10-foot span?
Yes, I believe so.
And she strikes out again. So do you want to defend?
And how many feet do I have left?
About 7 feet left.
Okay, I'm going to roll willpower to try to
Push her back.
dodge and get behind, either try to, get around her or push back.
I don't know if that's possible with official fencing.
Okay.
It's either a forward or a backwards. Getting
motion.
behind him, I don't think that works.
Okay.
I could be wrong, fencing fans. I don't know. But she charges again. She just lays into it and keeps coming back with another repar. So do you want to try and block it again, or do you want to try and do everything into? Well, I guess if you get hit, you're over.
Yeah.
So she's got the better initiative, so she gets an attack every.
So I would rather block this one.
Blocking seems to be what you're doing for fencing.
Oh, that's the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Then yeah, I'll keep trying. I'm gonna.
Because you can't really. If you were in a full melee, you could dodge out of the way, but this is a narrow strip that you have to
Yeah,
kind of stay on.
stay
So
on.
it's all the sword.
Okay. 2.
Okay. She gets through and jabs you again in the leg this time, which I don't think is part of the rules. I could be wrong. And it hurts, like it stings again. So what are you gonna do with the rest of your actions?
I'll try to get her. 2.
She barely stops it. It's next turn. She comes in with a flurry this time, and she roll.
2. That's just the trend, I guess.
She moves in and moves right into your point, which glances off her and nicks her neck, and she starts bleeding.
Oh yeah.
She comes in again.
She's bleeding now?
Yeah, she's bleeding down her. It's a good nick.
2.
2, you get another poke in at her, and it seems to piss her off. So this is still the same turn. She has split her dice pool into 2 more sections to come at you.
Good God.
Like she's furious. And she comes in and she whaps you on the thigh really hard, and it stings.
I can't do anything.
You can't do anything. You're kind of like off balance. She comes in again and smacks you on the other thigh, and you know you're going to have terrible bruises from this. Roll your rage.
So I just straight up roll the dots.
Yes, you'll always roll the full pool on your rage, willpower, and gnosis. You will tick them off to spend them later on once we get into the full change.
If she rolls 7, is she going to kill that girl?
She might.
What's I don't roll 7. no, I
So
only
the
roll
difficulty for being embarrassed and belittled, we're going to say is a 6.
5. 2.
So 2 successes. You are fuming, but you are not out of control. This is the next turn. And she comes at you again.
Is she flurrying?
It's a flurry, a full on
I'm splitting my dice
blade is
pool.
everywhere. You're kind of seeing it like flash all over the place. So the first one,
2.
2, you deflect it. For your roll, your second,
I don't hit her at all.
she smacks through and hits you like on the head, and you're like, fuck. She goes again for this turn.
1.
She comes through and smacks you on the side. And this last one, she oversteps, and she's at the end of this, she is off balance.
I get to go now?
It's the top of the turn.
Oh, so I
So
can.
she's got to spend part of her dice pool getting her balance back. So,
Awesome. So I can full on hit her now.
right.
That's
She's trying to dodge or basically get her balance back.
So I get to roll all these dice for
If you want.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm hoping that it'll. What was the difficulty?
Difficulty is 6 if
3.
you're attacking. 3. You smack her good, but she still regains her balance. Barely.
Bitch.
It's like she's cut back and then she just jabs. Do you have any dice left?
Nope.
The stomach this time. And she jabs you so hard her sword bends almost like it's going to break, and then she pops it back. She goes in again, smacks you again, and for the last one, she whacks you in. You are pretty bruised up right now. So if we were taking ticks off of your health, you would probably down at...
Hurt.
For each of these, you probably took one, so you're probably down to like your -2, almost your -4. Roll your rage again. She is whipping your ass. You've never seen her act like this before, and you're not. It's kind of a shock as well as embarrassing. Your difficulty is a 4.
4.
This is it. You hit your frenzy at this point, and it's fight or flight. Nothing crazy can happen at this point. You can't think to do maneuvers or anything fancy like that because your blood is just on fire. As you're standing in front of her with a sword, it seems to be shrinking as you're holding it, and your fingers are elongating, your nails are elongating. Your mask is suddenly painful to have on, and you instinctively pull up and tear it off, and your ears feel wonderful once you yank this thing off. You have shredded through your clothing, and even though you've had prep for this was still a shock. You didn't expect it to happen like this. You expected it to be another debutante party. They're just going to change, and it'll be like pudding, it'll be great. But you are full on pissed. You look down, and the mirrors on the workout wall, you look over and see yourself, and you are shocked that this is you. You look over, and she has changed as well, and she is in full claw mode, and she goes, "Don't stop," and continues on.
That's creepy.
So now you're both in Kronos form, so your strength is up +4, your dexterity is a +1, your stamina is +1, and take one of those bruised levels off, the lowest one, because you instantly healed for that turn.
Okay.
And she comes at you full on.
So you said what goes up now? Your strength and.
If you flip over to the second
Yeah, here
page,
it is. Okay.
it has
Strength
all those
and
pluses.
+4. Holy cow.
Yeah.
I need more
So at this
dice.
point, whenever you're in a frenzy, you can't split your dice pools or anything like that because you're just too fucking wigged out.
that the technical term for it?
That is the technical fucking flipped out.
Whose turn is it?
Let's go with another initiative roll. So your dexterity's got a +1 extra. Difficulty's 4.
2.
She got 3. She has beaten you by 1 both times. She leaps through the air, and it's not a growl, it's more like a grin, laughter, barking thing, and lays into you.
And for melee, is it strength or dexterity based for
Dexterity
what we're doing?
for the
Okay.
hit.
It's always dex to hit.
Dex to hit. Right.
It's just like Exalted. Dex to hit, strength to damage.
Okay.
That was surprisingly low. Are you going to do any... Well, I guess you're both attacking Sam. She swings out and strikes you with a claw across the chest, and it sings, it howls with pain. Her strength is even higher. She's pulling her punches a little bit, but it's enough to give you a good scar to remind you. She gives you 2 levels of aggravated damage. So on your boxes, the top ones become a star. So it's going to be an X with a horizontal line through it. And those 2 boxes you had that were just the top 2 have the star. And then those 2 boxes that you're replacing get moved down to the bottom. So you would move your 2 single slashes.
You were bruised here for these 2.
Yeah.
So these become aggravated, and those 2 bruised get pushed down.
Right.
Got it.
And it's your turn. And you are seeing red. You don't even see her as the person you thought anymore.
Okay. I'm going to full attack. What's the difficulty? 6 still?
6 is the difficulty for claw, yeah.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So this is your strength +2 plus an additional 2 for your damage. Plus the 5.
Plus another 5?
So your 5 for hitting, your strength +2, and another 2.
I need more dice.
How many do you need?
No, I don't. I just need to dig them out.
Oh.
Okay.
This is where you need 2 or 3 sets, just in
I
case.
have a lot. I just didn't pull them all out. Okay, what's difficulty?
Difficulty is always a 6 for damage.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
8. You sink your claws into her and just tear up her side, literally.
Yeah.
She howls and she pulls back, but you see like you have shredded a good portion of her, and it snaps you out of it because you suddenly realize who it is.
Oh, okay.
So you are able to stop and pause for a moment while she kind of holds her side together, and she changes into her half form, the glabro form, and continues to heal. And as you stop, this turn goes by, you heal that bottom level up. So you just erase 1. And she could talk more now that she's in the glabro form than you can talk because you're in a war form. And she says, "Congratulations, you've passed the test. We need to take you to the cairn immediately." And she's in a lot of pain. So she says, "Shift back down." And you know what she's talking about because you've been told about shifting forms and things like that. So so you stand there and you start breathing heavily and slow your breathing down a little bit. And you shift slowly back into glabro form, which is the taller than a human. It's the Lon Chaney wolf man, little fur on the cheeks, that sort of thing.
It's very
and you
creepy
heal
on
up.
a female.
Yeah. And you heal up another level, and she stands there for a little bit while looks like she's just concentrating really hard, trying to heal up. And a couple more minutes, you heal up completely, except for the 2 aggravated. You've kind of got a gouge out of your shoulder where she got you. She says, "We have to go now." And you 2 would have to, she says, change down to human, change down to your natural state. Takes you a little concentration. You eventually shrink back down. You're naked, your clothes are all over the place in shreds. She says, go get changed. We have to go. Fade to black. This has been a production of Gaming Without Gaming. All rights reserved. You may download only material displayed and identified on the site as specifically available for downloading. Such material is for non-commercial personal use only, provided you also retain all copyright and other proprietary notices contained on the materials. You may not, however, distribute, modify, transmit, reuse, repost, or use the content of the site for public or commercial purposes, including the text, images, audio, and video without our written permission. Werewolf the Apocalypse 20th Anniversary Edition is property of Onyx Path Publishing. Please visit drivethroughrpg.com to purchase your copy of the game today.